Hey, what's going on, everyone? Austin Distal here, and I'm joined with Darby Rollins, the very first ever Jarvis customer, and also the first person to ever get a Jarvis tattoo. Dude, show them what you got.
Marked for life.
Oh man, dude, that's some real fanboy energy. I love it. You are the true Jarvis expert. Day one, man.
Day one.
And also, if you guys didn't know, Darby is also in the record books for the first person to write a book using artificial intelligence. Of course, it was Jarvis, which is wild that you were able to do it using pretty much all of the features of Starter back in the day.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy how much improved the tool has gotten every month that you guys keep developing it. It's incredible to see how far we've come in 9-10 months.
Yeah, it's seriously cool. And Darby also helped me write my book with Jarvis. I know that's something that you put a lot of focus on is really like pushing Jarvis to the limits. And you've helped write, how many books now in your roles program?
I mean, we've had a few hundred students come in and do the live with us where we've helped them, and inside of the 7-day framework, several dozen books at least. But we see every day, or not quite every day, but several times a week, multiple times a month inside of the group, people posting their success stories with ebooks, lead gen books, working on their fiction. Right, Jarvis is helping all types of authors continue their author journey and getting those books out of their head.
I love it. I'm going to raise the chat here because we are live and want to see where's everyone from, and are you going to get the next Jarvis tattoo? Also, I'm curious to know if you're watching this live here, what is the industry that you're writing about? Because in today's training, we're going to write out the hero's journey, which Darby, in a second, give us like the background on what the hero's journey is. But this hero's journey, we're going to pull in some ideas from the crowd here live. And so if you participate on the call, then you might actually be like the case study here of building a hero's journey out for your character, but also if you're in business for your customer avatar.
Yeah. So the quick background on the hero's journey was around, I think it was 1949. A mythologist named Joseph Campbell wrote a book called Hero with a Thousand Faces, and it outlined these 12 steps that the mythological heroes in stories of the oldest stories of our time go through this series of 12 stages to go from an ordinary world to ultimately becoming the hero, taking the call to action, going through their journey that develops them into that hero. And at the end of it, it's the person who they become. And this story has spread across fiction movies such as Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Hunger Games, you name it. Some of the biggest stories ever told follow this exact framework. And the same thing can be applied to your customer's journey inside of your business, your reader's journey as an author, and in general, helping the customer, the reader, your audience, who is the hero, and you act as the guide to help them through their journey, the same way Yoda is the guide to Luke Skywalker.
Exactly. So if you guys are running an online coaching business or an e-commerce brand, or pretty much any industry can do this very well. If you're selling something, there's nothing more powerful than selling storytelling. I think about like Nike comes to my head. What does Nike sell? They don't sell shoes. They don't sell, athletic gear. What they sell is the story of being a champion, being great, winning. And by default, by them telling that story, making their customer the hero, their brand and their products are the guide and the tools to enable them to become the person they've always wanted to be. And so on this call, we're going to walk through the hero's journey, not only as it applies to fiction characters, but also how it applies to your brand and your products that you're selling. And so this is going to be really fun. And Darby has created a recipe. And so if you're unlocking boss mode to be able to use this recipe, you can actually save it live. So I'm going to show on the screen here where you can get this recipe so you could follow along with us. If you go to jarvis.ai/hero, then you'll be able to save this Jarvis recipe right into your account if you have boss mode. And to have some fun here, at the end of the call, I'm going to post a photo or maybe record a video of me choosing 3 people who have downloaded this hero's journey recipe, and you're going to get a Jarvis hoodie for free on us. So 3 people will be randomly chosen to get this hoodie that I'm wearing. And by the way, it's my favorite. It's super soft.
Yeah, I really want to. I haven't taken it off all week.
This.
I haven't taken it off all week. It's my favorite hoodie.
So download this hero's journey now. If you're watching the replay, hopefully the time hasn't already passed where we've chosen one. But we're going to give 3 of these. That's why you got to show up live, participate, be here. And if something Darby says is super exciting or you're like, take away, I want you to hashtag nugget in the comments along with the thing that rang your bell so that we can go back through and read the notes in the comments section, because that's the beauty of the community here. We're helping each other. And so you can kind of look in the comments right now to see the spark notes of the training. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Sweet. Well, I'm going to be here in the background. Darby has a really great presentation here for you. And if you have a question, you can ask it, and I'll be there moderating. All right. Good stuff. Well, Darby, why don't you go ahead, start sharing your screen, and I'll be in the background.
All right. Let's rock and roll. All right, guys. So we are talking about the hero's journey here today, like Austin said. So we're going to be covering how to craft an epic story and at the same time creating a customer avatar with Jarvis. So what we're going to be covering here today, we're going to kind of quickly cover the 12 stages of character and story arc development. Whenever you do download this recipe into your account, this 12 stages is outlined in detail so that you can always go back and reference it. So please go ahead and download that into your account now. And in the recipe, when you upload it into your Jarvis into the boss mode to start writing, there's a little condensed version of each bullet here to constantly keep it fresh in mind, top of mind as you're going through the recipe. So to kind of jump in, we're going to go through the first 12 stages of these recipes in the hero's journey. And as we mentioned earlier, 1949, mythologist Joseph Campbell published The Hero with 1,000 Faces, which outlines the structure of the journey of the archetypal hero's experience in the world of myths, right? So this entire process here is the framework behind popular fiction books and films, including, like we said, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Ender's Game, Lord of the Rings, and so many more. And so this recipe, while it is this backbone to this framework, there's so many movies and stories of our time, can also be applied and double as a framework for authors, fiction and nonfiction alike, marketers, business owners, to better understand their readers and their customers. And in turn, this understanding will help you better communicate your message more effectively in your marketing, and also help you develop the full cusp of your hero's journey, the person that's going through your book as a fiction or nonfiction author. So right, number 1 up here, and what we want to pop into first is the ordinary world, right? So this is kind of like the world setting the stage. This is our hero in their own world at the beginning, oblivious to the journey that's going to come ahead to them. So it's kind of their safe place. They're comfortable. This establishes the hero generally as like the human, just like you and me, so that you can kind of relate and connect with them, to empathize them, and with the problems that they are experiencing. And then the call to adventure is, as this protagonist journey actually begins when they're called to adventure, right? So this could be something like a direct danger that's threatening their safety, their family, their lifestyle, their community. It might not necessarily be as dramatic as someone getting shot and killed, but it might be a life-changing moment and a real shift that forces the character to the call of adventure. But the third step of the stage is the refusal of the call. So the hero in this framework denies the call because there's a fear that they're not going to be able to complete what is needed of them. They have real deeply personal concerns about this. They may not feel comfortable that they're capable of performing the task, and the hero will refuse the call. They'll suffer, like Luke says, like, I'm never going to be a Jedi. I don't want to be a Jedi, right? The problems they're going to face are going to appear too difficult, and they're worried that they're going to fail, so they refuse. Then the hero meets his mentor, number 4 here, meeting the mentor. Think Yoda, Luke Skywalker. The mentor figure provides the hero with something they need at a crucial turning point. And the hero needs guidance, right? The mentor is the guide that's helping the hero along their journey. They're offering stuff like they might offer a valuable object, knowledge from the past, advice, hands-on training, self-confidence, whatever it might be, whatever form this mentor comes in. It's to help get that hero over their concerns, over their fears, and encouraging them step by step along this journey. You can probably think back to your own hero's journey right now and the different mentors that have come into your life at certain times and how they've helped you with their sage advice or wisdom or providing a tool that has helped you along your journey and towards the path of your own success, right? But after meeting the mentor, the hero is now at the point number 5, is crossing the threshold. So the hero is now prepared to act to the call of adventure, to start their quest, to start their mission, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual in nature. They're ready to act, they're prepared, and they're going to go on their own accord, or they might be forced to do so. But this is where they need to cross over this threshold and really take that step. It might be leaving home for the first time on an epic journey, or they're facing internal demons. They finally decided they're ready to start fighting them. And that brings us to crossing the threshold into the tests, the allies, and the enemies, right? They're out of their comfort zone now. The hero is thrust into a series of obstacles on his path that are going to test him in a variety of ways. This is really going through the gauntlet. Obstacles are going to be strewn all across the hero's path, whether it's physical, whether it's people preventing them, whether there's all types of forces here. This is where your hero, your customer, your readers are going to run into problems, objections, issues that they might be facing in their own life, and running into them that, like, oh, this is a monumental task. This is an enemy. This is a trial that I need to get over with. But along this path, they also meet friends. They meet people that can help them face these allies together, right? And then we go on from the tests and allies, continuing on our hero's journey into the approach to the Inmost cave. Now, this generally represents a variety of things inside of the hero's tale, including like a real life location with a deadly peril or an internal debate that a hero has yet to confront. Think like deeply psychological or internal emotional things that you really need to grasp with and really face your fears, going deep down. And this is, a really critical point where the hero is going to come to that ordeal. They're coming up, this ultimate trial is going to be coming up, and the hero is approaching this cave and he's got to prepare himself for it. And so this ordeal, some call it the supreme ordeal. It's a perilous physical or emotional trial, something of profound inner conflict that the hero's got to overcome in order to survive, or the world in which he lives in might not exist. Like, this is like the huge monumental thing, like Luke Skywalker needing to destroy the Death Star to, save the universe, right? Like the big thing that needs to get taken care of here. And, the hero is approaching it and he's got to survive it to continue his quest. And when the hero does get over this ordeal, he gets the reward, right? The hero, after overcoming the enemy inside of the ordeal, surviving the death, finally conquering his greatest personal challenge, ultimately is changed for into a new condition as a result of the battle, right? And like, again, I'm kind of going down everything inside of the bullet, the description, the recipe that you guys download, so you can reference back all of these points. If you ever wanted to like get a quick refresher on like what's the purpose of this particular stage here, right? So make sure if you haven't right now, go and download that recipe into your account so you can reference it back and follow along as we're doing this. But yeah, so the hero gets this reward. This reward might take a lot of forms, many forms, powerful object, secret knowledge, or wisdom increase. Maybe they're reconciling something with, a loved one, something of that nature. But this is a treasure that is designed to help them complete the journey. And now the hero is in a better position to do so. He's more well equipped, right? So the hero, now that he's overcome this ordeal, he's got his reward. It's time for the road back. And this is kind of leading us into the last phase of the hero's journey, when he's got his reward, he's going back home, and now instead of being afraid, he's got to do one more thing as he's coming back on this road home, to eventually what you get to is the climax with his new reward. He's got to really get out there and face the final past road here in the hero's journey, which is the resurrection, right? It's the climax. This is the last and most hazardous confrontation with death, whatever death means to that character, to who you're writing to. The hero's final contest is about more than his own existence, about overcoming all these implications that are going to impact his physical world and those that he leaves behind, right? If he fails, then others will suffer. And all the burden is on the hero's shoulders here. So the hero ultimately will succeed here by defeating the opponent and emerging from the conflict with the prize that he originally had set out to be with. And that's kind of the return. Stage 12 here, the elixir. The hero comes home. He's got the reward. He's a transformed person. You can see very distinctly from stage 1, the ordinary world where your character was, to returning back with what was the transformation, right? Like its most basic form, the character was this, and then they became this. The character was shy, and now they became confident. What had to happen inside of that shy to confident that the character had to overcome? Who did they meet? What challenges, what obstacles did they face? What internal like desires and issues and problems did they solve and they overcome? What did they acquire as a result of going through these trials and tribulations? And how does bringing that back, how does being confident now impact their family, their friends, their community, their business, their reader's journey? If you're developing yourself as an author, right? We're all going through this cycle here all the time. And, in taking this recipe, right, when we just kind of broke down that entire of what was the hero's journey here, over the past 2 months inside of Jarvis Underground, our Facebook group, where all we talk about is how to write books and sell books using Jarvis. We've had hundreds of people inside of this group test out the hero's journey recipe that you should have in your account right now. You should download it. The link that we can get here.
Let's show them. Yeah, I'll show them how here. There are some questions in the comments about this, which I think I've helped out. But if you go to jarvis.ai/hero, then you'll see a page. Let's see. I'll just share my screen real quick. I'll show you exactly how to use it. So it'll look like this here. All right, so it'll bring you to a page like this. All you got to do is click run, and then it saves it to your documents. Next time that you go to your docs, you'll see it right there. All right, and you can run that anytime. If you want to see other recipes and download this one in the future, go here to the recipes. And at the bottom, we have a few that we've featured from people in the community. And here is the hero's journey outline. You open that recipe, click run, or save that recipe, and you're good to go. Mm-hmm. Make sense? Sweet. All right. Sorry to interrupt your daytime show. Now back to the action.
It's all good. So like I was saying, we have been testing out this recipe that you guys have now in your boss mode account inside for the last 2 months, really. When I'm going back and look at the dates when I post this, we've been developing probably in total for about 3 months. And in terms of how I've been, really deep diving into what this recipe does and copying over, testing, running a lot of iterations on it. But so have lots of other people inside of Jarvis Underground, inside of the Jarvis community. And here was just a few things that people had to say as in terms of their takeaways from the recipe. You guys can kind of read it here, but a big takeaway from me, what I learned from how people were using it, real Jarvis users, is that, it's great in terms of character development. You can use it in the form of writing books. And a lot of the application that I find with it is rapidly creating like different ideas around a story or where Jarvis could go, and to just quickly brainstorm it. You'll notice when you download this recipe, it's a lot meatier than a lot of the recipes. It might just be like one aspect to it. It could be 12 individual recipes all on its own for each of the 12 steps for the journey. And so just because you're downloading the recipe into your account, you might find that, hey, I'm only trying to target my ordinary world. I really want to talk about my character's call to adventure, right? Like Carly did here. She noted to me that what the character's pain, when we asked Jarvis that, it often put it in the form of problem, agitate, solution, which, kind of makes sense. But, you guys can keep this as Carly was doing. She was keeping the training that is part of the recipe in the background, jumping back and forth, kind of getting used to it. But, again, I think when it comes down to it, guys, you got to get in, you got to play around with it. It's great for outlining, great for creative outputs. Really, it's great exercise in testing creativity. And I was chatting with another Jarvis user, Dave, just recently, about testing out the recipe, and he actually used it to write his entire homepage and the sales page for his website. I thought that was really cool. So, Dave used about 75% in total of what he was doing on his website was using this recipe, saying he was re-entering different story ideas, cut and paste the ones that he liked, still fine-tuning it, but, really enjoyed the recipe. And there's a video script on Dave's website with a great video script, very well done, very high quality, even hired a voice actor to read over the script. But about 90% of that script, if you end up going to Dave's website to check it out, is written by Jarvis and written by inside of like kind of this hero's recipe. So really cool just use case if you guys, pop on over, check his website out, check the video script. Know that 90% of that was written by Dave using this recipe in his business. So really cool to see. And it also helped him get unstuck with his book, right? So all in all, great use cases for how this recipe can work. But let's dive in and let's do it live. Austin, I know we're going to hop into boss mode, but let me pull this up.
That's right. So yeah, let me give you like a little brief on what boss mode is and how that correlates with recipes, because I know we have some people on here that aren't yet using Jarvis and they have no idea the context between the two plans. And then also people that they've maybe been using the long form editor for a while, but have never created a recipe. So in boss mode, you get access to these documents that you see on the page, where Jarvis it's kind of, imagine like Google Docs, but you have your AI assistant in there writing commands that you give it. So it's reading wherever the cursor is, the last 3,000 characters up to get really good context. So it maintains the storyline and understands like where it is in the length of your content. And then after that, when you give it a command, which we'll show you in a second, it's going to follow that command. And since it's read 90% of the internet, so it knows a lot about a lot, it's also going to apply what it's read above and then in the left-hand side, that content brief area, keywords that you want to include, things like that. So this all gives Jarvis the ability to write really specific, high quality, original content for you. And in recipes, it is a series of instructions that you give Jarvis to follow. So let's say that you have like a standard operating procedure for you first go A, then B, and then C. Jarvis, you want to give that to your team to always follow that pattern. Well, that's what a recipe is for. And people like Darby and a lot of other experts in the community have really nailed these recipes that you can actually distribute out to other people. And so if you go, for example, to the hero's journey one, then you'll be able to save that and duplicate it and run it every single time you have a new ad campaign or a new book you want to write. It's a repeatable process. So I hope that gives you some clarity on what recipes are. And if you guys have any questions about recipes and what boss mode is, just let me know in the comments, and I'll tackle that for you.
Cool. Well, I know, Austin, before we hopped on this call live here, we talked about doing this this hero's journey, kind of off the cuff. Let's give Jarvis an example. Let's develop a character kind of live. Let's show it in action as people want to see it. So I don't know if you want to pop back on here with me, Austin, and let's pick a subject. Let's pick a character's journey that we can showcase live and see how Jarvis works in action, right? Because
let us know in the comments who is your protagonist? Who is the person that you want to go on this journey? It could be, for example, the female who's thinking about going vegan and she's not sure yet, and so we're going to help develop that character arc. Or maybe it's an athlete, or it's a musician, or there's so many developments here. It's a parent's, first time going through parenthood. So let's follow a storyline here. Since Jarvis knows about so much, we can really go many different directions. All right, so I'm going to wait for a few of the comments here.
You said my boss needs to go on this journey to learn how to empathize with his employees.
That's a pretty good one. Small business owner looking to increase their sales. A young boy, becoming a man by leaving home.
An author.
An author wanting to write a book. That's a pretty meta idea. A woman who can't lose weight no matter what she does. All right, Darby, I'm going to leave it to you, man. What story arc are we going to develop?
Okay, well, the boss needing to go on a journey is kind of funny. I'm wondering what the path of that might look like. That's one of the front runners here.
I like that. So let's go with that. Like, how to become a leader, how to go from, like marketer to CEO, where you have to like now develop a team. You're like first starting as an entrepreneur and like, you're wearing all the hats, and eventually you have to become this leader that like builds an organization. I think that's a pretty cool story arc.
Okay. So you're thinking maybe where everyone watching this, anytime I start using any of these recipes that I develop and anyone that we coach through to do it for their books or their marketing or anything, it always starts with answering these 6 key questions to give the content brief that kind of example of stuff to reference from and something to build off of. So the more that we think about this on the front end, the faster we're going to be able to move when it's time to give Jarvis the command. So let's start with the what, right? So what is the concept, the idea, the topic that we want to relate to a reader? This is, like you were saying, Austin, an entrepreneur that is leading a growing company and hiring employees and has to transition into being more of a CEO and a good boss for. All right. So I'm going to be using a dictation tool called Voice In. There's other ones if you use Mac or PC that you guys can use, but I'm just going to talk it. I fractured my wrist this week a few weeks ago playing volleyball, so I'm going to try and keep it easy in terms of how the typing goes.
It was one heck of a spike. I got to tell you what, man. we called Darby the Donnie Hammer, and he laid it right in the sand. They had no chance.
So let's start this content brief off. And again, we've got 600 characters to give it this context, right? So let's see right here. Story of an entrepreneur whose business is growing and he's now needing to become a CEO who can manage a growing team of employees. This is happening at a co-working facility in Austin, Texas. The year is 2021. This is an important because the entrepreneur's worst fear was to grow a team but become a boss that everyone hated. He's got to learn how to treat his employees better, and in doing so, it will help him grow his company to reach his goals.
And so you're just going down those lists of questions, and in the content brief on the left-hand side, you're kind of answering that in a fluid, like concise storyline to give Jarvis some context of who your character is. Is that correct?
Yes, and something that I try to remind myself in the form of where is this going is starting with the end in mind. Entrepreneur wants to be a better boss, but for this when and how, I might say this needs to happen in the next 3 months, or else his company will go under, right? Or in like just some idea of like, if you don't know any direction that you want to go with this, it's going to be very easy for Jarvis to just create ideas and run with it, which is might be what you want. I just want to have a general idea when we're talking about someone becoming a boss, entrepreneur growing, becoming a boss, having employees, but wants to be a better boss. And if those employees leave, he knows that he's going to go back to being a solo entrepreneur or something along those lines. We'll see what Jarvis gives us. So yeah, exactly.
And now whenever Jarvis starts writing, it's going to be reading whatever in that content brief on the left-hand side. That way it stays kind of on task.
Yeah. This needs to happen in the next 90 days, or else his employees will leave and his company will fall apart. He must hire or find, let me see. We're almost at the 600 characters here, right? And so you'll find that, see how far we've gotten to the how, right? The how is like ask yourself, how will this happen? Like, let me see, how will this happen? He needs to find, so he's got to find help from a mentor to do this. This is the base of our story, right? It's a story of an entrepreneur whose business is growing, and he's now needing to become a CEO who can manage a growing team of employees. This is happening at a co-working facility in Austin, Texas. The year is 2021. It's important because the entrepreneur's worst fear is to grow a team but become a boss that everyone hated. He's got to learn how to treat his employees better, and in doing so, it will help him grow his company to reach his goals. This needs to happen in the next 90 days, or else his employees will leave and his company will fall apart. He must find a mentor, right, to help him do this. All right, cool. So now that we've got the content brief here, the last thing I might just like add in is what's the kind of the tone of voice of something like this. So maybe Austin, just to keep it a sounding board here. When you think about a journey of somebody that's narrating maybe like the entrepreneur journey of going from solopreneur to CEO, who comes to mind that is an influential figure that would have knowledge on the subject?
Building teams, I can think of nobody better than Richard Branson. The guy has created 300 companies, more now actually, and his books on leadership are pretty awesome. Elon Musk is great. I think he's done a good job as engineer and leader.
Maybe a characteristic of maybe that both of these share, Elon and Richard.
Well, I think the tone here is to be like become the leader. So leadership might be the right tone here.
Leadership. I'm going to write sound advice in here. All right.
Yeah.
We've set the stage.
And I want to kind of bring attention to this, that there's no like list of tones of voices. So Jarvis kind of understands, like, if you want to mimic the tone of voice of Richard Branson or Elon Musk, like it's read their content, but also understands what like a leader's tone of voice is, or excited, or scared, or courageous. Like though it understands the natural human language.
Absolutely. So now that we know this, and it's time to dive into the story, realize that I never gave the hero a name. I have no idea what this character's name should be. So I'm just going to ask Jarvis, what is our hero's name?
Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Let's go, Steve.
All right. Well, now we're ready to rock and roll. We've got Steve on board. So let me do this. I'm going to remove a mentor because I didn't come up with it, but I want Jarvis to always reference Steve in the back of his head. So now that I have a name of an entrepreneur, I'm just going to go named Steve. 600 characters on the dot. It's almost as if it was fate. So, all right. So now we're diving into it. All right, guys, we are set the stage. We are ready to build an entire character outline journey development for Steve. And we're going to start with giving Jarvis just commands. What I'm doing is I'm using the command Control-Shift-Enter, which is going to highlight the command, but it's not going to replace the command. I've found that I like to remember the commands that I give Jarvis and know where it's coming out from, so I can reference back to it as we kind of go. And yeah, we're off to the races now. So we got Jarvis, right now he's born in Austin, Texas, grew up in a bustling city. He's always loved nature. Feels more at home in the wilderness than anything else. That's why Steve became an entrepreneur. He owned a business that operated mainly outdoors. Okay.
Cool. I didn't know Steve was so outdoorsy, but I like that.
Well, it's probably why he lives in Austin, Texas.
Bet he owns a paddleboard company.
Interesting. All right, here's where it's going to start getting fun, guys. So obviously Jarvis is a robot, and sometimes it can spit out outputs that aren't necessarily right in line with what you want. Great thing is if you have boss mode, you have unlimited credits, and you can just swipe that off and give Jarvis a command again. So that's what we did here. We're asking Jarvis to give us some parallels that from Steve's world, right? And generally, if you want to replace these with the character's name, it'll help Jarvis reference that a little bit more. But you notice that even with this command, like this name shift here, it's still pulling in Steve, right? So, Steve's story has parallels to today's world. For example, entrepreneurship is becoming more popular with people owning businesses that are outdoor oriented. Steve's business would be considered a lifestyle business. It was successful because he knew his customers and what they wanted. The world was different, similar, ours, right? And I want you to
And real quick, Darby, why don't we zoom in a little bit more so people can read the text here, especially
absolutely.
the replay. Cool.
Sorry about that, guys. So what I want to highlight here real quick is Jarvis reads things and is operating off of patterns and seeing consistencies in it, right? And so what you're going to notice throughout here is as the story develops, Jarvis is going to start prompting itself questions to continue the conversation, because it's saying, oh, Jarvis literally knows that you're developing a character or a storyline right here. And so it's going to start prompting itself questions. And so while you might not want to use everything that Jarvis gives you, if it's giving you these conflicts, Jarvis intrinsically, because of what it knows from the internet, understands the hero's journey. And so this is where I've had a lot of fun in just kind of letting Jarvis do his thing. You'll see that it's prompting itself more questions from this recipe designed to develop the character around it. And I haven't even gotten to the third or fourth command that I've been giving it yet, guys. So you might be pleasantly surprised when you're going through here. What are some things that Steve has recently tried? Maybe it's a new pair of shoes that didn't work. Maybe it was a load of other things that the character is trying that might, help you develop a clearer picture of them, right? And a lot of the content that you're going to find inside of a recipe like this is that these are all just like characteristic traits. Like maybe Steve trying on a new pair of shoes that he didn't like, they weren't comfortable. He thought that they'd fit perfectly walking around them for a while, but they just didn't. Maybe that's because Steve has like a thing for like really comfortable shoes. And you're like, okay, well, maybe we can tie in Steve's, want for shoes and comfort to tie into his role and being a CEO, right? Purely a brainstorming mechanism. But, it's already giving us Steve's hero's name named Leo. So I'm just going to keep kind of going down here and showing you how these different details, right? These are all things that I'm going to delete Leo, actually. We'll get to that later. That's a separate question. So we want to just kind of dig in more characters. In high school, Steve, give me some. You're telling Jarvis, hey, give me some more details about the character's life, home, and community. It's telling us about his high school life. He's telling about maybe some of the challenges that he's experienced. Some different background notices. That's good. Yeah. Who is it? He's the protagonist of the story.
Dude, this is incredible. I love how detailed, this character is really getting some color. And the fact that this is written by AI, right? How wild is this, y'all? And there's no template being used, right? This is pretty unstructured. This is very specific. It is you talking directly to the AI, giving it commands. So you're not going through any of the 50 templates that we've created. This is in an open field where you're talking directly with Jarvis.
I see a question here. Can we insert required keywords? Yes, you can definitely insert keywords if you want certain keywords to show up throughout here. We just didn't for this specifically. Want to give Jarvis a little more free range. As you can see, like we're highlighting some of his capabilities. Steve is respectful. He's courageous. He's got a strong sense of justice and values his freedom and independence. He's a capable entrepreneur. Again, you keep refreshing that if you like what you're getting. And if you don't, then, mix it up a little bit. And I noticed that Jarvis is seeing the character pattern here a little bit. And so I'm just adding in Steve where it is. One of Steve's flaws. One of them, he can be a bit too arrogant at times. He believes he knows everything is the perfect answer for every problem. Another flaw is that he can be a bit selfish. He moves through life on his own terms and doesn't want anything to really change or get in his way. Right. So, if we're talking about flaws in a character and really highlighting maybe what are some of those, like maybe your customers have certain things that, like maybe they are a bit stubborn. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just, whatever. Like, I don't know. Use this for however you want in developing a character's personality type. I like this one with developing their outlook on life. Let me see. So Jarvis is now seeing, it's reading this up as, see, it's interesting there. So sometimes like when I see stuff come up, I know I'm not going to use it right here, but that doesn't mean just like trash all of the content. Some of this stuff can be reused later for different parts of the story, different angles that you can go about marketing to a customer or just understanding their journey, at a little bit more detail. I'm seeing highlight. No, I'm not actually highlighting the thing to get it to run a command. I am putting my cursor at the end. I'm just clicking Control-Shift-Enter, and it highlights the line where I'm giving it that command, right? So whenever I want to kind of move on from a section and want Jarvis to reset a little bit because it's starting to see, you notice how it's picking the 3,000 characters above. It's referencing that there. So, hey, Jarvis, no, let's keep going this character. What does Steve stand for? I'm going to say, hey, right, Jarvis, go ahead and only reference back what we're talking about here in the content description.
So those 3 stars, that's like a stop looking. It's like a blinder. So Jarvis will like read whatever's, to the left and up of the cursor, but then stop wherever those stars are. But it will also still read that description on the left-hand side. where the content brief is. So you can always update that along the way if you want as well.
Cool. So again, just brainstorming. So Jarvis might take some stuff literally. What does Steve stand for? Steve stands for Stephen or Stephen or Stephen, right? Spelling like that. But like what morals you might ask here. You might switch it up a little bit, like in terms of just modifying. Steve stands for honesty and honesty, right? So he doesn't want to become the CEO of a company that he would regret leading in the future. Steve also wants to make sure his company is growing for all the right reasons, not just because he wants to be the boss, right? That's, some good stuff there. We're going to highlight it and come back to it later as you're getting it right. Is this the type of person that Steve really is? If not, keep asking Jarvis some questions. Give him a little bit more. So here's a good one, right? What does Steve stand against? If in your marketing journey and talking to your customers and knowing like, what are they against? What are they not for? He's against the idea of becoming a boss that people hate. Say stand against. You can kind of keep rolling down the form of just be good employees still don't like them. So again, developing that story, and really, if you're coming back into here and like one of the initial test users of this recipe was saying is like, as you're building out a website or a book or an outline or a blog or some social media content, right? You can always come back to these recipes and then fill them out some more, find what you like, scrap what you don't, and then go on to the next one, right? So Steve's here. What does Steve desire? And then we're going to move on and just keep building out this content, this avatar of who Steve is throughout this journey. The asterisk sign, the 3 stars right here, is a stop. So Jarvis now would not notice anything else right here, right? So Steve's ability to manage would be good. So Steve's desire right here is to need the ability to manage his company better and to be good at being in charge. He desires to make a world a better place. His business is progressively growing. He needs to take on managerial responsibilities, right? Cool. So now going on to the call to adventure, right? So let's say like Steve's call to action. Now I want to like get an idea of like what's happening right now in Steve's world that's forcing him to take charge, right? Deciding he needs to be a boss who everyone loves, not just someone they tolerate. Steve stops being a jerk. Got to stop being a jerk to your employees, Steve. Nobody wants that. Right? So again, what is Steve's call to action? This is like calling out what is forcing Steve to make a move, right? And then understanding what are some of Steve's pain points that he's experiencing right now. An entrepreneur looking to, advance and become a better boss. And you'll see right here, Jarvis is going to start prompting itself a little bit now. And this is pure AI imagination, guys. What do they want? Steve wants to grow it, become this. What's stopping him? The obstacles Steve needs to overcome. His enemy is something like the fact that he still wants to be himself and has become a CEO who not only manages, but brutal, right? And this is Jarvis picking up on what's been put into it so far, picking up on the patterns of the story that we're building here, and knowing that like, hey, this guy's going on this story and he's going to face obstacles. An obstacle would be face Steve's bad habit for not treating his team better, learning how to change for the sake of growth of his companies, right? It's prompting itself this ally, which is something that we're developing inside of this framework of people that can actually help him through this process. And one of those things would be a mentor, right? So Steve is going to meet a mentor. It tells you about that. We're learning about the tactics that Steve is using right here, right? So it's going to kind of keep. Yeah.
And let's say that you want to, like, you have an idea that you personally want to run with. Let's say that Steve here has a mentor, that mentor already has a backstory in your head. Maybe it's you, like maybe like
Mhm.
you are the coach and you're describing your customer's hero's journey. And so here you're like talking about yourself actually. Like if you are Yoda and
Mhm.
this customer Steve is Luke Skywalker, um, you can actually start off a sentence or even give like some backstory of yourself here in this. And then if you do like compose, you can let Jarvis finish the end of that
Mhm.
storyline.
Yeah. So give me a quick little prompt. I think I know what you're saying here, but just prompt me a little
Okay.
bit.
So we already established that Leo is the name of his mentor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, instead of doing a command here, let's just do like uh,
Actually, one
we'll
second.
do a compose. So you know, meet Leo, the mentor of Steve. Leo is a veteran CEO and has exited multiple companies.
So I'm just scrolling down to this section real quick, Austin, because it's the meeting the
Okay.
mentor section. So if you're going to be
Yep.
filling out a mentor specifically, go ahead and keep it inside of this little framework, so that you can
Cool.
just come back and you're not, if you see we're already 3,400 words into this, right? Like just
Yep.
a little bit more organized as the sections you're putting in, the better. So let's go through that again. So like, who is Steve's mentor? Steve's mentor is Leo. So do that one more
Yeah, and
time,
so
Austin.
let's say that why don't you like describe who Leo is real quick, and
Yeah,
then we'll
yeah.
have Jarvis finish the sentence. So it's not a command, but rather it is just using compose to finish the end of your sentences.
There we go. So I said, describe who Leo is. Jarvis went, and why is he a good mentor for Steve? Leo is a founder of a company called Giant Space, which became one of the top companies in Austin. Went through many growth factors and returned to a CEO. He knows exactly what Steve is going through because his business did so well. It will be easy for him to give advice that can help Steve's business succeed.
That's great. Yeah. So I mean, very very cool background on who Leo is, um, and the difference here of when you do that left hand arrow
Mhm.
or looking to the right. That's like the note for a command. So you're telling Jarvis an instruction. Rather, if you hit just Command J as Darby just did, that is like finishing the sentence. So there are different tools for different use cases here.
Mhm. Like we'll see right here is all we did right here. Like all I'm doing right now is guiding the AI, right? We typed in describe who Leo is, 4 words. Jarvis finished that sentence, and then it took the prompt of the sentence above because it's referencing what's right behind him. It's not looking behind here. It knows we're talking about a mentor and it knows more about Steve. Jarvis filled out this paragraph. Um, that paragraph, it prompted itself, what are Steve's next steps? Steve needs to follow up more with Leo because it looks like Steve was refusing to even work with Leo. He's maybe brushing Leo off a little bit. And so it's giving a little story around that. The next couple of weeks, Steve needs to have lunch with his employees and start planning for lunch with Leo to show off his company doing. So this would be cool for him. Right. And then I asked it while we were talking, Austin, what is Leo's mentor's motivations to train Steve, right? He wants to feel like he's doing something to
Mm,
help people. He spent so much time dealing with the problem, wants other people not to go through that. Right? It's very reasonable that that's somebody's motivation behind this. What does the mentor represent in this case? Right? Leo, Steve's mentor, represents the people that he've helped Steve along his journey. The people that have helped Steve along his journey. Leo's become a successful business, is willing to help others try to do the same. So here, when it's asking what did the mentor give him on his journey, it's kind of like, okay, is it advice? He's giving him advice to help him become a CEO, right? That's what the character, the Steve, the hero, um, is taking, and he's going to apply that to what he wants to do to become that better CEO. Let me see. So again, kind of like we're talking about describing the mentor. This is purely me giving Jarvis the inputs and Jarvis is getting the outputs. The more information that you fill out on your own, whether it's information on you specifically, adding your bio in here would be a great way for Jarvis to reference you if you're the mentor in this case to your customer journey, right?
I also see like what the mentor is giving the protagonist here, who is the customer, is your product, right? Like maybe it's like Leo gave him his journal, or maybe Leo gave him his book or his course. So it's like kind of a packaged form of his information that he's selling. So if you are the consultant and you wrote a book and you're giving it now to Steve, who's a CEO or wannabe CEO and currently an entrepreneur, you know, or it could be in the same way that like Nike gave you the shoes and those shoes made you jump faster and finally you were able to dunk and you made the varsity basketball team. It's like at this point in the story, you're kind of introducing your product, but they are relating with the protagonist, the hero. They're not relating with Leo, they're relating with the protagonist. And that's important to differentiate because your customer is the hero of this story.
So funny you said that. I went back and asked Jarvis what his mentor gave him. His mentor gave him a book, How to Not Be a Terrible Boss.
Oh, that's solid.
So these are just ideas as to what can the solution be that your mentor can provide to your customer, to your audience, right? Advice is one thing. Advice comes in the form of many things, like you said, a book, a course, anything along those lines. But once you have this, now it's time to cross the threshold as Steve is here on his journey, right? Does Steve start willingly, or are they pushed out by an outside force? Co-working space turned out he's had to interview with an investor. They didn't intend to start a business. Push him, ended up being interviewed. So maybe that's the push, is to like be interviewed by an investor, or maybe it's a different angle. Maybe it's something that you have in your mind already. You can kind of fill this out, right? This can be a Jarvis prompt, and it can also be a prompt for yourself to do that. Let's see what the threshold has to represent. Let me see. The threshold represents a practice departure from more reality. Yeah. So this is the departure from their normal reality. And it's funny here, you noticing that like Jarvis has understanding of this hero's journey because there's so much content out there over the years that's been developed on it. And so it does reference that in forms of building this out, which is great because it is a little bit more cohesive. It's not like it's making something up out of nowhere, right? This is stuff that's been studied. There's lots of research on it. And so Jarvis does have an understanding of what all of this is. What's it like when Steve crosses the other side? He reads it as an opportunity to change himself for the better, but it won't be easy. Steve, he needs to become the CEO as company to finally do it, right? Many difficult adjustments that came with becoming a boss, but after crossing over, Steve realized he had an opportunity to change himself for the better, which would benefit him in more ways than his employees, right? So he knows that like, I'm going to cross into this new world. I'm going to be a better boss and I'm going to become better for it. Jarvis spitting out some mythological knowledge. New world's scary, right? It's a new world, it's an uncomfortable situation, but Steve, the protagonist, adapts to become more comfortable with it, right? Ultimately realizes benefits, control of his company, anxiety about losing his team, right? So again, all the ideas to brainstorm with as you're developing your customer and your character. And here's where really, especially in the form of like the journey, when your readers are coming through and facing these obstacles, these challenges, the things that your mentor, that Leo in this case, gave him some book. His first challenge, like what are all the possible challenges, objections, issues, hurdles, roadblocks that your customers are going to come into, or your audience is going to come into, and they want to overcome. And so Jarvis is giving us a list of these, right? His first challenge is not be a total tyrant and learn how to treat his employees better. Another option is he needs to find a mentor, right? He's so busy with his company. It's giving some reasoning behind it here. Another one of its first challenges could be, or just a challenge, hiring a team to take care of all the administrative work so you can focus on the business development task, right? So this would be if you're going to this level of CEO in Steve's case, you've got to learn, how to outsource, how to hire, all of the things that go into growing a company, right? And Jarvis is giving ideas as to what those might be. You take that challenge. That could be a chapter of your book. That could be a YouTube video, a Facebook ad, all sorts of things. New challenges he's faced with. Now he's hire a team for the admin work, business development. He's also been approached by a VC who wants the company. Now Steve must learn how to value his company. Question is, how do I learn how to value my company? Again, blog post, chapter of your book, YouTube video, whatever forms of things. So that's going to be a question that Steve's going to run up against. And you, as the guide here, can continue to help Steve along his way by helping give him access to the information that's going to help Steve move along. New skills, learn how to manage time better, right? That's a great new skill to complete more tasks during the day.
Let's say that you have a specific, thing that you're giving them, or that the hero is overcoming. So someone asks, I want to supply some information directly and not always have Jarvis continue the story, because it might not totally be it might not always be fiction. You might want to pull in some real life stuff. In these points, as Darby said, they could be commands for Jarvis or it could be a command for you. You're this is your teammate. So you need to this is why we call it boss mode, because it's you are the director and Jarvis is your assistant. And so these questions that you're asking Jarvis, what is Steve's first challenge? You're asking your assistant to answer that question. But if you know it, if that's part of your, that's, part of what you're writing about specifically, then go ahead and just answer that yourself. And now Jarvis will read that in the future as it continues to write.
Yeah. So give me an example real quick, Austin, of something that we haven't covered here. We can give Jarvis the prompt and we can build on, maybe from your own experience.
Yeah. What is Steve's first challenge? He's the bottleneck of his own company because he has a very specific skill that his employees don't have. And so he needs to hire the right person to replace his role on the team.
So he needs to hire the right person to replace his role on the team. So if this is the case, and I'm saying that, okay, Steve's first challenge is this, you know better than anyone what the challenges are going to be here. In this case, for the very first challenge coming up. So I say he's the bottleneck for his own company. He has very specific skills his employees don't have. So what does Steve need to do to find someone to replace his role? Right. Jarvis's first answer to this is finding a mentor. And I mean, part of that might come from the fact that we said he needs to find a mentor on it. But Austin, as someone who has gone from, startup to where Jarvis is today, right? You look to people who have done something that you've done before and can mentor and advise on the best path going forward. Would this be a reasonable thing that you would need to look to first in your own experience in removing yourself as a bottleneck? What's your first step in that?
Yeah. So it depends on the end goal of this piece of work. Let's say this is a really long form story for let's say a company like Indeed hiring, right? Which is an Austin, Texas company. So if Steve here needs to hire the right team, maybe his mentor is the account manager at Indeed, and now he's trying to hire the right roles. Well, the challenge is that he needs to source the right people. And so now he was given a tool, Indeed.com, to be able to source the right candidates to fill his positions.
Mhm.
So this is where you can like really pull in like some real world stuff from your storyline and your customers like idea, because I think that that's where it becomes even more real. But let's say that you're trying to still ideate,
Mhm.
you haven't had your coffee yet, and you're facing writer's block. You don't know where you want this to go yet. We'll have Jarvis do the hard work for you then.
It's interesting how specific it gets here, right? With what we gave it. First challenge, bottleneck in a company. What does he need to find? He needs to either find someone who's skilled in the area and has enough skill to take on this role, or needs to find a mentor to help him manage a team. He doesn't have experience and would benefit from finding someone like this. Who's the mentor he chooses? It's kind of going through Steve's thought process, right? It's like, I need to find someone from my company or outside. Outside mentorship would be helpful because they'll have a different experience here, and can help him grow his team. And so he's like going through the identification process of, who does Steve need to find? What is their criteria? He wants to find a company that's gone from 5 to 50 and to 20 employees in the past year and a half. And the mentor needs to have this kind of experience. And so this is going to help with Steve's decision in going through this path. What are the steps he needs to take to find that mentor, to reach out to them, and have them shadow him the next 90 days, right? Like, that's pulling from the initial story of this needs to happen over the next 90 days, for that to happen.
Yeah, like watch Leo now be maybe an interim COO who's helping Steve hire the right people. And so he's giving him both knowledge and tools and all these things, but he's solving these challenges. If you are Leo and you're trying to figure out how to sell your offer to be hired part time as COO,
Mhm.
then this is a really cool way to ideate what your customer is going through. And maybe these are the bullet points of like on your sales page. You go, if you find yourself here and you're looking to get here, leave this place and come here. I'll give you that information, through my book and hand holding and introducing to people and whatever like the offers are. But this is how you're kind of bridging the storyline with selling your offer.
Absolutely.
Wow, Jarvis is coming up with some good stuff here.
Because we're moving down the journey here. This new adventure means that Steve's going to have a chance to grow and improve in many ways, right? Who's Steve becoming through this process? Your brand, your business, your book, whatever is helping Steve become that person in the process. What new tools does Steve learn how to use? Many new tools, including Trello, Slack, right? This is where Jarvis knows some tools. He knows that these are business related tools. But now, what new tools is someone going to use? Maybe it's, Asana, maybe it's Notion, maybe it's Webflow, and maybe here you add in all the other tools that someone's going to need in order to achieve this kind of goal. Get that one here. But in this case, we're talking about he needs these tools to communicate with employees and organize all their tasks in a single place, right? Very important. So here, if you have your own allies and people you can describe, again, it's kind of like creating mini customer avatars or mini avatars of people inside of Steve's story, because, they're going to have their own story, their own experience, and what they can help them with. Another ally. Because of this question, Jarvis is like, okay, we got one ally there, another ally is someone who used to work with him. But, just kind of going down that path, getting an idea of what the playing field like. What are the enemies that Steve is going to meet? A bunch of smiley face emojis, according to Jarvis, on this first go round. Let me do this. Interesting. This case of the year, generated the road. That's an interesting angle that Jarvis went with, talking about the enemies, in terms of human entrepreneurs come across different types of people from all walks of life. And Jarvis is giving his take on different types of boloing inside of their business. So we can say that many bosses enter into our office and find out there are enemies lurking in each corner, waiting for a chance to strike when least expected. Interesting. So one thing that Steve might need to worry about here is like, who are the other people that are in business with him that are maybe, looking to sabotage his efforts and becoming the CEO that he needs to be. Right. And so Jarvis, again, kind of going down this path. And when it does hit a stride like this, I like to see where it goes, because it can ask some questions where, again, it's just giving me some more insights to this, that, how I've seen people use this type of recipe in their business very literally is creating one of these avatar outlines and then handing them off to their marketing team or their, media buyer or anyone that's working, with writing blog posts or any form of content in their business. Like you have no idea how nice it is to get something like this where you're like, oh, this is like the character. I've got traits that I can reference to. They're upset that their shoes didn't fit them this week, a little agitated with work. They got to become a CEO. They've got all this responsibility, right? Like you're painting the picture, not just for yourself, but for everybody that's coming into contact with the business, with your website, with your emails. You're capturing a tone of voice with all of this. So just think of the ways that you can repurpose this content, even if you only do it once, because it is downloading the avatar that inside of your head, and you are the CEO, right? Or you are the author. But the better that you can articulate this, and the better that you can realize that all the different possible things that the customer your protagonist can fail with, right? How does he become overconfident, can't pay attention to what, you spend 1 solid hour going through this entire recipe, you could have 20,000 words of content around a single customer. I know that because I've done it, and it's a lot less time than it would take to write out that detailed of a customer avatar description. You know what I mean? Like saving hours and hours of time, especially of just getting kind of like stuck in your own head of like, okay, could it be all of this, right? Just let Jarvis do a lot of the heavy lifting. You just need to direct it.
That's awesome, man. And what comes up for me here is like when we talk about who do they want to beat, and like what angst do they have like in this character development? I think this would be a really good time for you to write an ebook to solve that, or to record a YouTube video, or write a social media post. For example, here, Steve, maybe, he's dealing with butting heads with a co-founder, and he's trying to become the CEO and a leader. And like, wow, that's a whole new angle that you could write a blog post of, like how to deal with tension on your founding team to finally scale up your company, or, how to be a better leader than your competitor CEO so you can win the game. Like whatever, these are really ideation times for you. And I think that's one of the most powerful parts of Jarvis, is that what if just a few small things Jarvis writes gives you the light bulb for you to go off on like your own and create these tangents? Because man, like what we just did here in the last hour and 15 minutes is incredible. And it's such a simple exercise. And you saw, like, we did it with you here in real time with a fictional character. Imagine what you could do with a real like example that you are trying to create with right now.
Something to kind of like cap on that point with what we're going through, especially in the struggles that people go through. A great expansion and like even more of a deep dive into like how this story framework that we just went over here on this training is Donald Miller's story brand book, because he takes the same concept that we're talking about here and he builds a framework very similar to how this recipe is. Purely speaking from my experience, going through that story brand course, I went through the entire course, and I went through it several years ago. Great content, but I always ran into issues with like, what does my character struggle with internally, externally, philosophically? Like I would always run into, like, again, just my experience, I would run into those and I'm like, okay, how do I, like, what does my customer struggle with philosophically? Like, I don't know. Like, Like, what is it? What's an external like thing? Like, I don't know. It could be a lot of things. Jarvis is saying that, hey, it's externally, it's trying to keep all your employees happy. Like, that's a big external thing, right? But philosophically, what is it? You know, he thinks that he puts all of his effort into people that respect him, but that's not the case, right? He needs to understand what the balance between work and life is and what they want. And, you know, Jarvis can get strangely philosophical, right, with what it knows. And, you know, again, just for kind of, if all this was for to just be an ideation board for you and something to help you get through kind of your writer's block and just do a little bit more of a deep dive and not have to pay a consultant $20,000 to come and do it for you. You know, this is a really, really handy way to build that customer avatar, to get it 80-90% of the way there in some cases, and then come back to it, right? You can get a lot done in a very short amount of time with this recipe. Take a break, come back, refresh, go through, edit it, and condense it down. You could have a very clean, crisp cut storyline there. And especially if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, CEO, founder type who's using books to bring people to your business. Same with authors, to your business, to your platform. You're helping people with your books go from where they are at right now to where they want to be. Ordinary world to returning home with the elixir. And that's what the hero's journey is, right? We're talking about.
Hey, Darby, I think you're about to go into it. So what we always like to do at the end of these now is do a quick recap, you know, in like 2 minutes here, fly through everything that we learned, you know, all pulling, you know, in some of the nuggets that people got, so that, you know, we can clip this out here. So you want to run through what do we learn here today in the hero's journey?
Absolutely. So what we learned here today inside of the hero's journey was, one, how to craft an epic story customer avatar with Jarvis. We covered the 12 stages of character and story arc development and went into how this can be used in outline for authors, marketers, and business owners to better understand their customer avatar. And then we did a deep dive into how Jarvis Recipes, when you upgrade to boss mode, can be used to build your entire hero's journey using artificial intelligence. So we went through the 12 stages to start out. We went through the hero's journey as brought to us by mythologist Joseph Campbell in his book, Hero with a Thousand Faces, starting with ordinary world all the way to call to adventure, where your hero refuses the call. They meet that mentor who gives them the tool, the advice they need to cross the threshold, to face their tests, their allies, and their enemies, to really get down with it, approach their innermost cave, come into the ordeal, the supreme ordeal that they need to face, take their reward from overcoming that ordeal, head back to their ordinary world, face the climax, the resurrection, and then overcoming that final obstacle, returning with the elixir back to the normal world. And that is what's changed. That's what's changed from your character, going from where they are at, your customer, your reader. What problem are they facing right now? And what is the journey that they need to take to become ultimately the transformation figure there for your customer and throughout that journey. So we covered that. We talked about going into the hero's journey here. We filled out the hero's journey. Once you click run, right into Jarvis, and we've written out 6,000 plus words in defining what our customer avatar is. And we went through a story of an entrepreneur named Steve, who his business is growing and he needs to become the CEO who can manage a growing team of employees. We gave it the context in this content brief at the beginning of when we started this journey, 600 characters. Here's what's going on, Jarvis. We gave it tones of voice of Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and leadership. And Jarvis went off to the races. And as you can see, we've got a lot of content here in the different sections of the story where we're meeting a mentor, where, you know, and whenever this is in your account and you download it directly, you know, you've got the, you know, where is it at here? So it's quite a bit of content that we've generated in such a quick amount of time. So, you know, as I could say, like, if you go through this once, step back, take a break, come back through and, you know, refresh it again on the second time. Don't try and edit these recipes, especially on the first round, while you're going through it the first time. Go through, get the words out. Like, don't give yourself the time to get writer's block, and come back, check it out, take a break. But, you know, we started from the ordinary world. And as we started talking about Steve his parallels to society today, the problems, the solutions, the conflicts, the emotional state, where Steve is going. This really gives us that character that we can picture. We can paint a picture with it. Jarvis can help. And, you know, I see a lot of people using in the comments right now talking about this isn't only just for books, right? We can use it for scripts, fiction, nonfiction, video scripts, blogs, social media posts, all that content. If you're using Jarvis for any form of long form writing, like this script can be applied and manured and repositioned to almost any niche you want. It can be for creative storytelling, as we kind of see from here. People who inside the Jarvis Underground community have been using it over the past few months, developing a story, outlining character development, calls to action, background on the characters, different angles that you might not have necessarily thought about. Just getting creative overall. And in Dave's case here, quite literally built his entire website, his sales page on his website. And it even helped him complete his book, helped him write out a video script, 75 to 90%, all using Jarvis, using the hero's recipe, specifically in this case. And you guys can do that too. So, if you haven't signed up for Boss Mode yet, and you're thinking about giving it a shot, I believe right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Austin, I think you can upgrade and give it a free trial to get the full value of it.
Yeah. So chat with us, and we'll figure out how to let you try out Boss Mode. And I highly recommend, if you haven't already started a trial, go to jarvis.ai/free trial, and you'll be able to write up to like 10,000 words over the course of 5 days, and play around with this recipe. You can get the recipe at jarvis.ai/hero. And I know Darby put in many hours of work into creating this. And as a result, hundreds of books have been written with AI, with Jarvis here. And also, as Darby said, video scripts and many other things that you can use this hero's journey for. So whether you're writing a fictional book or you are marketing your own products, this is going to be a really great way to create that storyline.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, with that, guys, thanks so much for showing up live. I hope that you enjoyed the replay if you're watching it here on the Jarvis YouTube channel. And we'll continue doing expert trainings like this every week. So if you are very curious about what training, or if you have an idea of how you want to use Jarvis and you haven't yet found a training on our YouTube channel about it, then go ahead and just ask us in the Facebook group. And we'll find an expert in the field that's using Jarvis for that specific use case and pull them in here. All right. So go ahead, upgrade to Boss Mode, get your free hero's journey. And I'm going to, in the next 24 hours, randomly select 3 people who downloaded this hero's journey recipe. And you're going to get a free Jarvis hoodie, just like this one here. So I'm looking forward to posting about who those 3 lucky winners are in the Facebook group tomorrow.
All right, cool. And anybody that wants to kind of deep dive a little bit more into what we're doing with Jarvis in the form of books, as well as how to market and sell books beyond just the writing of it, Jarvis Underground is our Facebook group. You can find it just by searching Jarvis Underground. And we just recently launched our blog last week, where we're going to be continue to put our interviews that we do with other authors that are using Jarvis, kind of getting the gold nuggets of how they use Jarvis, as well as other helpful content and materials like this. So that's just jarvisunderground.com. And feel free to reach out to me through the messenger chat there, or through our email that you can find on site.
Yeah, it's awesome. Really cool to see how you're helping all these Jarvis customers write books. And man, personally going through it, that was awesome. So you're crushing it. You are truly the first customer and owning that. And I love your tattoo, man. That's so freaking cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate your time, and would love to have you back on for another encore.
If the people want it, we'll give it to them. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you everyone who showed up live here and everyone on the recording. If you have any suggestions or ideas for recipes or things that you're really curious of how to use Jarvis, again, jarvisunderground.com. Hit me up on the chat there, and we'll keep building on top of this. 2022's coming up fast. We got a lot of really exciting stuff going on. So
Yeah, freaking cool, man. All right, y'all. See you on the inside and in the next training. Adios.